And when you get to be one of the biggest brands, your big priority is to keep your market share. So you're this big train going along the tracks and you have all this momentum, and your advertising is maintaining that momentum. You're maintaining your brand image for people so that you stay on their minds. So the first thing to know is that you're going to just see a decline in ROI and a decline in spend when you stop advertising after a period of time, because you've built up all of that momentum.
And branding takes a while to change momentum. It both takes a little bit to build, but it also takes a little bit once you stop doing it to see that momentum slow. And that's really what we're seeing in those studies is that sales weren't an overnight change because they had different goals in mind. They're worried about building brand equity, becoming preferred as well as and maintaining market share as well as driving margin. Good advertising builds over a long period of time.
And the phrase build is really important because that is what it's about. It's a piece of the infrastructure, just as important as the other assets of your business, like the infrastructure of your business. It is actually worth money, and that's why it's called brand equity, and that's why it's a brand asset. And we know for Coca-Cola, for example, that the value that they have in their logo and their brand is comparable to the value that they have in their physical assets, because it's so powerful to have that psychological connection.
That's right. In fact, some accountants will tell you that goodwill is, in essence, your brand value, the overall non tangible piece that we feel about people. And it's really reflected in where sales come from. You know, sales, when we think about sales activation, represents kind of the tip of the iceberg. It does drive sales. Salespeople can be effective and sales activity can be effective. But in mature companies, the bulk of their growth comes from their overall brand value. People knowing who you are, liking who you are, and having an established mental space for you in their brain.
Yeah, and sales activation is the tip of the iceberg here because it's the bit that you see. It's the bit that's easiest to see and to measure. And it's really hard to see that big impact that brand has, but it's that thing that's extending out into the ocean and holding everything up in the first place.
And so those companies in the startup phase, they're on the water, but they're a little ice cube and they float almost entirely above the water. Everything is driven by sales because there is no brand value in this metaphor. So, how do we take this and put this into a larger construct? One simple chart can convey just about everything we want to get across today. And that's when we do sales activation. And these are things like salespeople out visiting trade shows, doing sampling, and things like that that are very retail oriented. They do have an effect on sales, but it's a short term effect on sales. They're non recursive. Now, brand building, on the other hand, particularly when you start out, has a very modest effect and it takes a long time to build. But over time, the effect of brand will dwarf everything we do from a sales activation standpoint.
This video is from our webinar series, and you can check out intermarkgroup.com/webinar to watch the full series. We're a full-service advertising agency that embeds a layer of behavioral science in our creative. And you can check out the information below to learn more about us and to contact us to help you solve your marketing challenges.